Hey, what's up? Welcome to the T54 tank review. We're going to go through the stats and the armor profile really quickly, and then I have some Ace Tanker worth gameplay for you. And if you want to skip directly to that part, click on the annotation below. So let's go. So first of all, let's take a look at the grind. I got the T54 to the light tanks, so MT25 to begin with, which is like the older T50-2, only with a pretty bad gun, if I'm honest, which is difficult to make use of, and with a larger profile, but it's really fast and you can have a lot of fun with it, especially if you are inclined to fire the occasional gold round. Then you get the LTTB, which is a rocket of a tank, really fast, good gun. The only problem are the gun depression and elevation, which are really terrible, but apart from that is very good, especially in its power to weight ratio, and it gets also some armor. You can get the occasional bounce, especially if you are playing against other light tanks. Then you skip to the T54 lightweight, which is arguably the best tier 8 light tank used in strongholds at tier 8 and tournaments, you know, ranked battles, that kind of stuff. It has a nasty gun, which is pretty competitive, and it's fast, not as much as the LTTP was, but still pretty good mobility, and it has like medium tanks kind of armor, I'd say. So it's just a little T54. And then you get to the beast itself, and I say the beast because, well, I'm going to explain you. So now let's take a look at the armor of this tank. It gets 120mm upper plate and lower plate, which is pretty good, and 80mm of completely flat side armor. So you want to angle the tank more or less like this, I say, and your opponents need at least 220 plus penetration to go through this frontal plate, and the side armor is too well angled, so it's auto ricochet almost anywhere except for this little zone under the turret here, and maybe the more frontal part of the side armor. And this is a weak spot. If you angle too much, you can get tracked on this tank easily and damaged at the same time, so watch out for that. The turret is 200mm at the front and 160 at the side. It's okay. I mean, it's not the best you can get, but it's well sloped, so they need at least 240 to 50 to pen this, and if they hit the gun mantlet is, well, they're never going to pen you. And the cupolas are, as you would expect, a weak spot, and there are two of them, so watch out as well for this. Now, the turret roof is actually 30mm, so it's overmatched for any gun above 90mm of diameter, but it's not that big of an issue because it's not really easy to hit the turret roof, especially if you use the maximum gun depression, which is 5 degrees, like this, so the cupolas are not easy to hit, and the upper plate is even more effective. Now comparing the T54 to the Object 430 version 2 and the WZ-120, the first thing I want to say is that on the T54 you get a choice of two main guns, the 100mm D54, which is also used on the Object 430 version 2, and this other gun, the D10T2S apparently, which is the gun you want to use. Why? Because it gets less penetration, 201 against 219, but marginally better rate of fire and accuracy, and much better aiming time at 2.3 instead of 2.9, and that's a huge difference, and that's why you want to use this gun here with 201 penetration. So, because the Object uses this other gun with 219 penetration, it gets slightly worse rate of fire, so worse DPM, and obviously the same goes with the WZ-120 because of the huge alpha damage and penetration that it gets with the 122mm. Okay, weapon handling, you can see, well, those values are slightly adjusted, so whatever, don't trust them too much. The aiming time is 2.3 instead of 2.9, and this is 3.4. The accuracy is slightly better than on the other ones, and you can see the tank is more accurate on the move and after firing as well, and it gets 5 degrees of gun depression against 4 of the object and 3 of the Chinese one, which is awful, isn't it? Movement wise, you can see the forward speed is more or less the same at 56, and this is a big difference. The engine power on this tank, on the upgraded engine, is 700 horsepower, which is a lot, and so it gets a power to weight ratio of 20.18, which is much better than on the other two tanks. But again, the T54 gets worse ground resistances, so the difference is not really that noticeable, but still the T54 is probably the most maneuverable one. Maybe not on hard terrain, because this 2.1 is pretty, well, soft terrain I mean, sorry, because 2.11 is pretty bad. But again, the T54 doesn't have a bad mobility at all, and you can go quickly more or less anywhere. We already talked about the armor, so nothing to say here, just that the other two tanks get a better turret, which is kind of an important difference, especially when you're not a top tier tank, and the hull is better on the T54, and the object gets the same hull, so, well, the same armor values at least. And that's more or less it about the tank. So here we have the gameplay, but I just wanted to say a couple more things about the tank. It gets 1650 points and 390 meters view range, and those stats are pretty standard for the category. Also wanted to highlight how this tank, in my opinion, is matchmaker dependent, and that's because of the armor in the first place, because your 120mm frontal plate is not going to save you against anything with 240 plus penetration, so tier 9 heavies, the majority of tier 9 mediums, not even talking about tank destroyers, and obviously tier 10 tanks. All those vehicles can penetrate your hull pretty reliably if you don't over-angle it. And also the turret is not that strong against tier 10 tanks, so what I'm trying to say is don't expect your armor to save you every time against tier 9 and 10 opponents. Also, the other reason of this tank being matchmaker dependent is the penetration, obviously, because 201 is just bad, bluntly, super weak against any kind of well-armored tank, but you know, you can get away with it aiming for weak spots the majority of the times, especially against tier 8 and 9 tanks. Against tier 10 it's not really that easy, but here's the thing. This tank can be divided into two vehicles according to the ammo that you want to fire. There's the T54 firing regular AP ammo, and it's a good tank, and the downside is obviously the bad penetration. And also there's the Heat 54 firing dirty premium heat ammo with, guess what? 330mm of penetration. Yeah, 65% increased penetration over standard ammo sounds completely fair and balanced, and strong Russian balancing, yes. So that's a thing that you have to know. The Hit 54 is just, it could be a tier 10 tank if it had more hit points, so that's why a lot of people love to spam gold ammo in this tank. And it completely changes the way you approach your enemies, you know. Instead of outmaneuver and outthink them, you have to well, you can just shit on their frontal armor no matter what, so yeah, fair and balanced. Apart from that, the regular T54 is also pretty expensive because of the shell price, which is above 1200 credits for every shot you fire, and it's not like you can do damage that reliably, especially if you are in a tier 10 match, because again of the penetration. Now playing on Lakeville, and while I feel on this map the valley is more or less utterly useless the majority of the times, I went to that middle position because you can spot tanks going into the city at the beginning of the game, and you can support your allies into the city as well. Now we came back to defend the base, and all those tanks giving me their side armor really kindly, and I'm going to take it and farm damage on this super Pershing to begin with. And now, securing the base, we're going to appreciate how this armor can be good against lower tier opponents, but how bad it can be against tanks with proper penetration like the T54. Now engaging the IS, and it's not like it can do anything against me, because I'm completely invulnerable to it, unless he shoots my cupola, but it's not really likely to happen. And the Tiger, it goes more or less the same for him. Kind of higher penetration like the Panther, but they cannot do anything, because that's how this tank works against lower tier tanks. It just farms damage, and it's not even funny how brutal this tank is at doing so, even because of the high DPM that it gets. Also, now I'm going to ignore the Panther completely, because as I said, it cannot do shit against us. And instead I'm going to engage this T-34, and we can shoot him like 3 times every time he shoots us, but kind of unfortunate to take the second shot. I tried to angle my hull a little bit more, but it didn't work out very well, and now they are all dead, and this Yak Panther could not do much better as well. And now the base is safe. Now we can go back to the previous position and support again our allies in the city, while they take out the Lorraine, hopefully, and this other dude, the 5120, which dies right now. So sniping in this tank is not really its strength, because of the kind of meh accuracy and again the bad penetration. Not like it matters against the Lorraine, but you know, it can make a difference against other tanks. It should also be mentioned that the shell velocity on this tank is pretty damn poor compared to the other tier 9 mediums, especially the ones using APCR, which are faster ammunitions, but also compared to the ones firing normal regular AP shells. Now the M103 over there is one shot, but apparently he knows what he's doing, so it should not be a problem to take out the Lorraine. And yeah, I didn't really have an opportunity of showing you the real mobility capabilities of this vehicle in this game, but whatever, it's still above average, even for a medium, I'd say. Now the Lorraine dies, and we can approach their base in a safer way. Not completely safe, because the tank destroyers could be at the edge of this road, and they could spot for the artillery, but it doesn't happen to be like that, so we can move on. And we still have to be careful, because the Sturer Emil can put trouble on us really quickly if he hits our tank, because even he has the penetration to do reliable damage. Now the artillery gets spotted, so I'm going to stay behind this bush to take out this pigeon, so we can now go for the tank destroyers. The tier 7 gets spotted right now. We could load HE for him, but now we don't even need to do so anymore, because it's left on 148 points, and this is a kind of a lucky shot that allows me to take him out. So now 5 kills, hunting the Top Gun, so I really want to kill this Yak Tiger 88. He bounces on us, and this is a it's really kind of a good situation for him, considering that he's hull down, but we can plant one into his lower plate. Now his reloading surprises me because it's really faster than I thought, and now he shoots the cupola, and I should have moved my tank a little bit more to avoid that. That's my fault, and now I cannot take any more shots, so I'm going to load the skill ammo to be sure we can penetrate his upper structure, so we don't have to expose our hull. And any moment now I'm going to take my first shot, which is not going to be very effective, as you are going to see. It bounces on the gun mantlet. Now I'm waiting for an opportunity for someone to damage him so I can pick up the kill, and that's exactly what happens finally. Here we have the post-game results. It's a master badge with Confederate, high caliber and Top Gun for our 6 kills, and 7,481 damage done, so very well, and also 1,641 base experience and a bunch of other medals that nobody cares about anyway. You can see that we hit 12 out of 15 enemy tanks, and this is not really surprising considering the amount of flexibility that this tank provides you with. So yes. Also, you can see how expensive this tank is. 37 shots fired, 30 hits, 26 penetration, which is not the best at all, but still. With a game like this, you would expect to make some money, but no, only 1,000 credits profit. And this is one of the reasons why I would probably rather play an E50 over this, even because of the better gun depression and more reliable armor. But still, this tank remains really powerful, especially when you are top tier, and my advices are use the flexibility, the mobility, and go as hull down as you can, so you avoid getting shot in the hull. And if you are inclined to use some premium ammo, well, you get the T54, so you are more or less unstoppable, and there's not much less to say about it. Remember that from this tank you can get the Object 140, which I recommend over the T62A, but you need 200,000 experience for each of those to unlock. But the 140 is probably better because of the better gun depression, speed, and frontal hull armor wise, while the 62A gets the better turret. So this is it about the T54. Hope you found this review useful in any way, and hope you liked it. So if you did, give it a like down below, and I'll see you on the battlefield.